That one shorty from China, she sold like $14 million worth of items in a week. She's got an assembly line worth of stuff, and she's like, nice. Boom. Sliding it down. Why do we even like watching people do that in the first place?
People like to buy from people. And that's kind of the genesis of how we got to live commerce. It wonders, why would Walmart take time to start doing live streams? One is that,
you know, as a child of the internet, you know, you kind of see all the different ways that shopping has like evolved. I think my first like own credit card purchase on the internet was on this website called Karma Loop that basically used to sell like basically streetwear. It was like a streetwear website. That was like the first time using my own card with my own like everything, entering information, sitting at home, waiting for the package to come in, basically looking out the window every day. Um, and it's crazy that that was like 2000, 2006 ish, 2007. And to kind of see where we're at now, it's kind of amazing. What are some experiences that you've had, at least when you think about shopping, that influences the way you view shopping? And how has that like impacted you today?
I used to work, one of my first jobs was at Marshall's. I used to work in the domestics department. And so domestics was like sort of clothes, housewares. And I remember that there were two times you never really wanted to get booked to work at Marshall's. And it was the day after Thanksgiving and 2 days before Christmas, because the returns were going to be nuts and it was going to be a zoo because people were going to be in there battling it out like it was the Serengeti, just looking for any deal, anytime. But you could get overtime, so you get time and a half. So I worked the shifts. But what it showed me was that sort of Marshall's business model is that they actually take the surplus that other retail brands have and they buy it at cost. That's why you can find heat at Marshall's. And that kind of let me know that there's a different supply chain about what we buy, and that how we buy or what we sell and how we denote quality is incredibly subjective. So luxury is actually much more about a set of beliefs than it is clothing. And so depending on how you think about luxury, you can have a different relationship to something vintage because the market sets the value, not the person who makes it. So what we decide is valuable is actually a agreed to contract. So we say Dior is valuable because of the story associated with it, right? You see uh, brands like Telfair becoming global sensations because of what people feel and are associated with that brand, the collaboration, how they make it, who makes it, who wears it, the way that they release products, the innovative ways that they've played around with demand and our relationship to consumerism. All of that fits into it being considered a luxury item depending on who you are. And so kind of working in retail and then also understanding like how the stockroom becomes the stockroom kind of shaped how I think about what I like to wear, and then also what value I put on stuff and how value actually gets put on things way before it gets to you. Because like the cost of making the good is different than the cost you pay to put the good on. And that's just a supply chain conversation. So I think knowing that has, I don't know, I won't say maybe super conscious. I like gear, but it does kind of make you think like, why that and why now? And what is that signal? Right? Because it used to be like you'd see people just laced in certain types of luxury. And now you see that it's actually minimalism is actually a luxury good. So like no labels and small things in the corner of a t-shirt or nothing on the sneaker, right? Like there's a whole different world of minimalism that's still a signal no matter what. So, yeah.
Do you do you believe that that shift from large large blocks, large labels, kind of like the big Gucci patterns, Louis V patterns, like that shift. Do you think that shift is um an economical shift, or do you think that shift is like do you think that shift starts in the supply chain, and then like what ends up happening is fashion tries its best to influence consumer tastes into that minimalism, or do you think that it actually starts with a consumer want and the brands kind of adjust, right? Because I'm my the assumption I always think is that when it comes to shopping, that in this very interesting way, especially as a person that's like really into fashion, typically at least what I've experienced is, hey, like maybe there's just a particular fabric that we've found in the marketplace that literally costs significantly less than the fabric we've been using before. So as a result, fashion tries to find a way to move style towards that way. Or maybe like the price per yard for denim has significantly dropped. So as a result, we could wear baggier clothing because we could actually get more denim for a cheaper price. So like fashion tries to at least like move forward with leading a particular trend based on actually the unit costs of these, raw materials. Like, do you think it's a thing that's pushed by fashion based on the unit price? Or do you think that it's actually them just trying their best to adjust to consumer taste? What are your thoughts?
I don't know if there's an either or. I think it's a yes and. I think if you're
Mhm.
running a business, depending on where you actually manufacture, all of these things have prices associated. Where you get the leather from. I read a story recently about how a lot of leather goods are actually made in Nigeria and then get marked up once they get to Europe. And so that's a very different conversation about like what the manufacturing cost is in Nigeria, and then it is transported to a warehouse. Then it is attached to whatever the good is. Then that good is also transported, tariffs notwithstanding. And then it becomes something different. So at each touch point, there is a price increase because it's the cost of labor mixed with the cost of goods. Then you have the IP associated with it. Then you have the product it's put on. Then you have the market dynamics of having to get it into a retailer, or depending on if you're sort of a chain or you have your own supply chain, the luxury status is that people are going to buy it because of what it says, right? Like we adorn ourselves in things to say something. It's naive to presume that like we don't care. We all care about something. Um, we all worship something. So at a certain level, like uh, the business is in business to make money, and they sell a good that the consumer wants. There's nothing wrong with that, but I do think it's disingenuous to presume that like there isn't a relationship. But that's why I think live shopping is exciting, because it flips the model of having to necessarily go somewhere or do it alone, because there's people in the chat. So then you're actually dealing with a bunch of people's perspectives about what you might actually want. And so communities help shape beliefs, and beliefs shape behaviors, and behaviors can shape values, and values are how we navigate the world. So presumably if you have like a value of I like to appear good, then you going to an atelier in Soho and paying 8,000 for 3 custom suits that are bespoke, and you know that the linen came from a specific place in Italy, is part of your value system. Like that's what that is. It's just like somebody else who's like, yo, I actually am very interested in the cool gray 11s in every colorway. because that's a value. Like, I collect these things. There's a market for that. So I don't know if it's either or. I think it's a yes and I think that the technology just is enhancing our existing beliefs. And that's why it works, because people are using it, because it's meeting an actual desire. Whether that desire is net beneficial is a different conversation, but to pretend the desire is not there, I think is like ludicrous. And it's a way that certain generations have grown up. So like they're native to the environment. So that's actually normative. It might be less normative for me, but that doesn't mean that it's not a normal, like they have been transacting that way since they could. So the ease of payment is actually natural. It'd be a problem if there was a certain type of friction for them. So I think it's a yes and.
A lot of what you said makes me really think about the history and the relationship that we have with shopping, right? Like at its core, we're all buyers and sellers. I guess where we should start, right? Really, is just like the history of live shopping. Like, why do we even like watching people do that in the first place?
Yeah, it comes back to the kind of the maturation of TV. So you have channels like QVC kind of premiering this new form of consumerism, like in the household. So as people became more and more sort of technologically savvy, and the price of, again, TVs and technology went down, because people forget, like, flat screens, wide screens were super premium products. And then as the technology improved, it became more and more affordable to actually get a TV in your home, and then to get larger and larger TVs in your home. So QVC took advantage of this because in the 90s, early 2000, even late into the 80s, you had sort of the infomercial wave, right? So this was purchasable time on TV where people would sell products and services directly to consumers, because people were actually watching the same thing because you had less channels. So if you could actually afford to sell direct, you could make a ton of money selling over the air for a long period of time. So QVC premiered this model where you would have sort of a live broadcast that was usually recorded, and people would actually show up with their products and demonstrate how they worked. So if you had a new type of sewing machine, you would be on camera in a studio actually hitting the pedal and showing how it worked. And people would actually interview the person, sometimes the inventor, sometimes the spokesperson, and there'd be a number on the bottom of the screen or the corner of the screen, and you could order it. So you could call in, they'd book it, send it to you, boom. Over time, as technology continued to increase, you had bigger issues, right? So you have the advent of the internet. You have cable viewer restrictions. So depending on your cable program, you might not actually get the channel. If you did get the channel, you might actually not watch it as much because there's sports on. And so you actually are seeing those channels get pushed to later and later, late night, which is a different type of consumer, but it's less general market because the cost of being on air increased. So from then, you would have limited product interactions. What the internet did was meant that people actually don't just have to see your product in one place, because the internet doesn't turn off. So if I go on a platform, I can actually see someone demonstrating that product, and then I can purchase it. And that's kind of the genesis of how we got to live commerce as an activity and not just a behavior. So now there's a community conversation around shopping together, and people like to buy from people. And so if you have an audience and you have products that you use or products that you made, they're more likely to actually engage with that because it's a one-to-one and they can see you interacting with it in your environment.
Got you. So when we're looking at the lay of the land, right? Like the map of the territory, what does the frontier of like live shopping look like now? I know that we got what, Amazon?
Yeah.
Who else?
We got Amazon Live. So if you go to Amazon.com and just /live, Amazon has legitimate people who have a direct integration into the Prime product. And that focus is kind of everyday products, technology. You have Whatnot. So that's a big platform for collectibles and trading cards. And so that's when we start to get into these not secret economies, but these sort of non generalized environments where there's real value on sort of trading cards, collectible items. They've raised over probably $500 million in funding. They authenticate their sellers, so you could be a person with a really big collection. You could be a shop with a really big collection, so a small business that actually is on Whatnot, which is a very unique way to drive foot traffic, is to have an actual digital presence as a small business, which is a whole other category for sort of a comic book shop that has a rare collection or just got a new um, shipment in, and you can engage with people all over the world from your actual shop and do it off a phone. So there could be people that are like, I can't get that comic where I am, but you could be the shop that gets it to them. So that's you couldn't do that before. It might have been a direct mail issue. It might have been, you're in sort of the local phone book and you're on Google, but this actually means you're borderless, which is a very different value proposition. We have also TalkShopLive. TalkShopLive is celebrity driven. So think about Paul McCartney, Garth Brooks, strategic partnerships with big box retailers like Walmart. And that's more, I'd say, books, beauty, lifestyle. So people are releasing a collection or a cookbook, and the integration directly into a retailer is really interesting because you could buy it on the stream, or where to go get that thing since you were already in Walmart. So like like bang a left after electronics and like go get the book you just heard Kelly Clarkson tell you about. Like that's kind of their steez. You have Shop Shop. Shop Shops is interesting because that's US retailers and Chinese consumers. So there's bilingual live streams going on from retail locations. And so that's very, very interesting because of China's relationship with luxury goods. And they have been a forerunner in the live shopping space. So we'll talk about that in a second. But the technology and how they have used that is actually really interesting. And you have Fanatics Live. Fanatics, sports betting platform, but they also have a section of the site that's about trading cards pretty exclusively. So trading card market's about 13 billion. They have expert-led presentations, community pricing and grading. Trading cards are interesting because like a car, like vintage fashion, authentication is actually really important. The same way that if you watch I used to watch Antiques Roadshow with my grandmother, and you see people like show up with this thing from like their great grandfather, and they get in front of somebody, and that dude is like, that's worth $7, and it's like a family heirloom that was like left to them.
Or like the like the pawn shop cat.
Yeah, it's the same. So that's what I'm saying is what's interesting about this market is that, to your earlier point, media actually frames some of this demand. And so if you think about, you've got pawn shop, you've got like, I think there A&E does you got those people who will walk around and go through storage units, buy out storage units, and like they run arbitrage by flipping storage units if they can find something. So like they might find something in the storage unit that is worth the entire storage unit. So they have a massive production rate by simply having the right product. And so the bet is like, I'm gonna find something in here I can flip, and if I get enough of these, that's how I just make money. And so they're essentially trading on collectible goods if they can go through the storage unit. That's been abandoned. So it's like a different kind of marketplace around used or well-produced goods, which translates to sort of this collectible market of vintage cards, right? Like if you ever had Yu-Gi-Oh growing up or Pokemon cards, like if you think about how long ago that has become new nostalgia. Like if you have a perfectly pristine Mewtwo in like casing, like that's several $1,000s because they don't produce them that way in that style anymore. So there's someone in the world who wants that for whatever reason. So the market is not correlated to typical demand. It's correlated to the demand of people who want the thing, which means that everything has a market. Whether you're in that market is immaterial to the fact that that market exists. And someone somewhere is paying top dollar for something. Finding those people used to be really challenging. Now, those people actually might come to you because they're looking to acquire that thing so they can then go sell it. Sneakerheads know this very well.
Yeah. Yeah. Back in the day when I used to collect, it was very much like heavy work in that, where it's like I think the first sneakers I really started collecting was the World Cup Air Force Ones.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, if you wanted to flip a pair World Cup Air Force Ones at the time, it was hard to get like twice the amount for it, just because, there were certain countries that were just quote unquote looked at as a better shoe than the others, right? But then over time, what ended up happening, because they weren't out at all anymore, then it became a thing of, all right, who got the Mexicos, who got the, I mean, so really it is about either finding a market, or in a very interesting way creating a market,
Yeah.
right? Um, and I guess that's the power creators have in this space. I feel like there are so many different ways to differentiate yourself in this space based on how you want to position yourself in the marketplace.
Yeah, and I think also it turns hobbies into another layer of interest for people. So Walmart, um, a couple months ago, announced what they've called collection nights. And so they did a partnership with TalkShopLive and a community called We the Hobby. We the Hobby is essentially a consortium of people who collect. And so they have a channel, people are really engaged, and they do these live streams where they're talking about the collections, what they have, what they are. So Walmart's a massive retailer, right? We got it kind of we cannot understate the size of Walmart having 2 million employees, right? Like Walmart functionally is essentially a nation inside of itself.
Mhm.
And so Walmart has a delivery service, Walmart has e-commerce, Walmart has a massive footprint globally. So it wonders, why would Walmart take time to start doing live streams? There are a few thoughts I have on this. One is that attention is currency. So I'm not going to Walmart unless I know exactly what I want in theory, at least digitally. Like if it's in my city, I go, I get what I want, I leave. But if you have a live stream and you're talking about collectibles I can't get elsewhere, that's a very compelling reason to start engaging with Walmart. Walmart also has its own marketplace where they allow people to transact. So they can actually be the marketplace for these kinds of goods. This is also interesting because it gets into production, right? So we're in the studio here with Wolf. Imagine we were doing a live stream. The same camera you see me on is one version, but there would be another camera on the table where I'd be using my hands. And that secondary camera is me playing or showing you the card, right? What it looks like, how it looks, opening it, showing you the deck, rubbing it around. That does two things. Because one, you're watching me do this, but my hands are telling a different story. So that gets into the multi-sensory relationship people have, because typically you're having a direct-to-camera experience. But if I have a live stream camera where I'm talking to Carl on a live stream, but you're also seeing me look at the card, we're now having two different conversations. We're having a conversation about me describing it, but we're also having a conversation about me playing with it. That is not your typical shopping experience. And the reason that's important is because it creates validity for the thing you're playing with. Otherwise, I would just be talking. But when you're trying to sell something, you need to describe the product, show me how it works, and explain to me why it might be necessary for me to purchase. I don't have to do that verbally when I can do it visually. So I can have a direct conversation with whoever's watching. I can talk to the chat. But while I'm talking to the chat, I can just thumb through the actual card deck. So it feels much more personable than, say, just walking down the aisles and looking for something. That's not to say you wouldn't do that, but that's one of the elements that I think live e-commerce has over other things, because it feels normal. that feels like the kind of thing you would do if you were looking at the cards yourself. So the host or the person of influence is essentially doing or showcasing what you would do, which creates trust in an hour and a half broadcast, which then is a really good use case to be like, you know what, I actually want that. And since you're on one of those platforms, checkout is a one-step process. So there's no waiting. And typically these things are limited. So I'm going on stream and showing you I only got 50, right? And if you're inside the first 30 minutes, maybe there's a discount. Or actually, we just did a bonus for this stream only. So once the stream is off, ain't no more, right? And so there's a sense of gating that can come with that. And I think that's a different differentiator, right? Because you have real-time engagement. You've got instant host feedback, so people can talk to the stream. You've got seamless checkout, so I don't have to wait in line. You've got interactive experiences, so someone can come into the stream, the game designer can show up, we can have a conversation. We have live demonstration of what the thing you're buying looks like, would feel like. And then you have trust building through transparency. I'm showing you what the box is. I'm showing you what's going to come to your door. Everything about the experience you're about to have, I'm walking you through. And the only decision you have to make is whether you want to press the button. And I'm giving you 2 hours to decide. Because once I turn the stream off, maybe that product's here, maybe it's not. So in the moment, you got to make a decision. And if I do it routinely, every week, you have a new set of decisions to make. And so now we have a relationship because I'm a trusted voice telling you the thing you could buy, why you could buy it, who would be useful for, the value of it, how it might have appreciated previously, and why I like it. All of which are exactly what a creator would be doing about the thing on their channel anyway.
Yeah, for me, when I view it, when you go in a store and let's say you're just browsing,
Mm,
and somebody comes up to you, you feel like they're trying to sell you something,
right.
right? Like there's there's an innate or this instinctual feeling that you're like, all right, this person's trying to meet a sales quota
Mm-hmm.
because they're gonna get a commission, right? But like on live shopping, it kind of feels like people are showing off their stuff and they're giving you the option to buy it if you want it, which allows you to actually do it. It changes the entire experience because the pressure is gone, but the excitement is high,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that's part of the reason why, sneaker culture and collectible culture did so well in like the early 2010s. It did really well because you felt like people had stuff that they didn't really want to part with, but you knew that there was a level of rarity associated with that thing that if you didn't get it from that person, you weren't getting it at all. So you were actually willing to pay more. And obviously, brands like Nike, and of course other brands like took that one way and just really, really, really limited the supply. But I think the real essence of it wasn't necessarily the fact that it actually was limited in number. It was actually more so that the person who was showing you the item showed you how much they loved it, right? And at least that's what I'm picking up from what you're putting down here when you're explaining that.
Yeah, Nike's an interesting example because Nike's always been aware of the secondary market and they enable it.
Mhm.
So they're actually not gonna, there's no point in cracking down a secondary market that actually creates the lore about the primary market, right? And so that's actually beneficial in a hyper competitive space like sporting goods, where there should be lore, where athletes have shoes and the shoe is associated with the lore of the athlete. So if I'm continually looking for new athletes, I need to continually protect from incumbent brands that also sign other athletes. Then having a culture that's associated with sport or the culture surrounding sports, even if I don't like the sport that the shoe is associated with, is a generational moat because it means something to wear Jordan 3s, right? It means something to be an 80s baby and have a pair of pennies. Like, all these things have weight because they're associated with memory and they're associated with a specific time. And to be wearing Bo Jacksons and knowing who Bo Jackson is very different. And I think that that's also something we trade on culturally, is like, hey, this has meaning outside of what you know. I can explain it to you. And collectors generally enjoy selling to other collectors because there's a value associated. This is how it's art, right? It's like, you don't buy art you don't like to not put it in your house. So the art is valuable for the intrinsic thing the artist did, not just what the provenance says it's worth. Interestingly, like the I think sometimes we think about the scale of e-commerce in terms of kind of like the US idea. So you've got like Prime Day on Amazon, right? Where they're like, we're going to sell you all this stuff, but you've got like 48 hours and it's just nuts. Or you've got Black Friday deals, right? Or things that come right before Thanksgiving or back to school. And I think there are some examples of this at scale that just, I think, are helpful. So one is this idea called Singles Day. So Singles Day is a celebration of singlehood that started in Nanjing University on November 11th. It happens every year. They call it Double 11 because November 11th is 111. Okay, you guys get it. Alibaba in 2009 was like, hey, let's turn this into a festival for just like single people, but like a shopping festival. In 2023, this day is massive. It's gotten so big that live shopping was responsible for $30 billion in sales, which is 19% of the volume of the sales that happened in a day. This is not like a week. It's not like a singles week. It's a day. It's a massive shopping day, right? The day is responsible for about 156 billion in gross volume in a day. It's a 24-hour period of just singledom, just going nuts. All right. You got millions of participating brands. You've got entertainment. You've got commerce. You've got key people of influence. You've got brands being like, hey, this is your day. We're going to build experiences around that. And this is why live commerce and creators go together real bad, is because you need people to make moments to allow the opportunity for sales. And you need people who are interesting enough to hold attention long enough for people to come in and see what's going on and to want to stay. That's actually not easy. Yeah. Holding attention is a difficult thing.
Yeah.
This is why you can like an artist in your house and never go to their show. Because they might be really good acoustically, but they might be dirt in live performance. Not everybody translates. It's the same thing online. It's like everybody thinks they can get in front of a camera and be like, I'm super compelling. And then they turn the lights on and it's ooh, ah, ah. It's just not the same. So I think that this is also one of those opportunities that I think is really powerful for creators that with big personalities that are just talking about things they like, right? Because it doesn't feel slimy when you actually like it. It's only slimy when you've got to like talk about something because they paid you to. It's very different when you talk about something you wanted to talk about and you get paid to do that. That's very different. There's another example I found in research for this episode that I thought was really interesting. So it was just Fashion Week whenever this episode comes out. So it was like Fashion Week was like a week and a half ago. And so Fashion Week's gotten interesting because the technology of how to view Fashion Week, which is typically like not everyone gets invited to a fashion show. But because of streaming technology, brands can now stream their actual fashion shows. So like Burberry this year on their website, come to London Fashion Week or whatever, you can watch the stream. You can see all the collections, and then after, drop it up on the page, pre-orders, all that. Regular, cool. In 2023, Zara, in collaboration with Douyin, which is the actual TikTok in China, did a live fashion show, but they made it purchasable. So they took up 12 cameras. They had 50 people in a room, 9,000 square foot set, and they made it look like a music video, right? So they had a supermodel who's named, I think, Yu Tianyi, laying it for 5 hours. Live stream had catwalks, walk through the fitting room, makeup area, behind the scenes, everything. So you're seeing everything. But the difference is, at every single point of this 5-hour stream, you could purchase anything you saw immediately. There was no wait. There was no, Zara said, if a human being is wearing it or you see it, you can buy it right now. So that's a very different way to think about how to drop something, is to make it
That
immediately available
Yeah.
for 5 hours. And then to give unprecedented access and to basically treat it like a live stream, but it's not just about the catwalk. It's about everything in the environment. So I think that, like, just if you think about what that actually means for how we expect products to be shown to us, or how a consumer base is used to and is primed to purchasing, that changes also the store environment. So it changes what you want to experience in the store. If you're getting an immersive experience online and you're seeing something that you would get in a store, but you're seeing it now, and someone's displaying how you might wear it and you can purchase it right now, you don't have to deal with FOMO. You only have to deal with, do I want this right now versus something else? So it's a different trade-off. But I actually think that the technology is affecting the need that's always been there, which is, I actually need to wear that. I want to wear that next fall. This is my chance to actually get it now. And I'm seeing how someone wears it. And now I'm just in a live action music video for 5 hours. And I love it here. So purchasing it just makes me feel like I'm part of the experience. And I got invited. So I don't need to be on set to still have like a takeaway. So I think that's just a very unique thing. My presumption is we're going to start seeing more of that. But I also think it's a replicable model. And I don't think you have to be in fashion to do it. I think you have to be thoughtful enough about what kind of experience do I want to showcase the thing I want to sell, which doesn't have to be sold the same way everything else is.
For me, it feels like a cross between, I don't know if you remember that trend probably like 2 years ago. Who knows how long ago it is, because it feels like trends just be flying by. But there was like a trend where like people would come up to somebody, like you would go up to somebody else and you'd be like, yo, like, how much is your fit?
Mm-hmm.
And they'll be like, yeah, this joint right here.
I'm about to go out, so I'm dressed on my, proper team.
Dapper.
Yeah, custom Brioni. You know what I'm saying? See the name right there. Like, it's 11, I think. Turtleneck, Tom Ford.
Racks.
Like a rack. Two racks. Trousers, Tom Ford, a rack. Crocodile, Tom Ford shoes, 15. Chain, custom progressive diamond link, Jason of Beverly Hills, like 200. Richard Mille RM69, 750. And then the two bracelets, one for my son and one that a fan gave me. It's priceless, man. You already know. Yeah. Might be the first $1 million outfit on Cope's channel.
You know what I'm saying? ALD, bought a rack. You know what I mean? And like, it feels like a cross between that and like the People's Gallery, Maurice's page.
What's your name and where you from?
My name is Thames. I'm from Lagos, Nigeria.
Nigeria's in the house. Let's go, Nigeria, girl.
You know what it
Yeah.
is?
You see the fit. Describe it today.
So today doing a little classic, rich bitch kind of
Vibes.
you know what I'm saying?
Jesus Christ.
Where somebody gets to sit down and like fully describe what it is that they're wearing, also tell you at the same time how to get it instantly, which is like, to me, a shopper's paradise if you're like a very big, if you're a very big fashion person. And for me, it makes me really just think about what it means to be a creative person, because the way you dress is a big form of your creative expression. right? Um, so there's this line that exists where it's like, hey, you can have whatever it is that I'm wearing, but also at the same time, there's this like level of creativity and exclusivity with that particular item that you're wearing. Sometimes people don't even want people to like all have the things that they're wearing,
Mhm.
right? So it's like it's going to be interesting to kind of see how this thing like continues, how live shopping continues to morph into ordinary people's lives, just like how they want to engage with that. Um I can imagine a future where somebody's like, all right, every season they're just like, yeah, like there's a bunch of stuff that I'm letting go. So here's me wearing them, or here's photos of me wearing those things and how I style them, right? And then like if you like the way I styled it, you can have it for insert X price. I think that's gonna be pretty cool. Um and as a result, like it's gonna be interesting to see how the platforms continue to adjust just because we're so like early in this, you know?
Yeah, I think too, the other thing that's interesting is you can play with urgency. So I think a lot of what happens in sort of just the consumer just mindset is it's always urgent. It's always expiring offer, 3, 2, 1, you don't get it. And the pace of life is already hectic enough. There's something to be said for if you do have the capacity to build an experience and make it immersive, it's an optional opt-in. It's not a direct means of staying. So in this our example, because the stream was so long, there's a relaxed atmosphere where it's available for purchase, but no one's telling you you have to because you could just watch the show and enjoy it. Not everyone can do that. And not everyone has, I think, the equity or the audience to do that. Some people are just like, I need the thing, I'm out. So you got to know yourself. But I do think if you can invest long enough, that's a memorable experience that people can have, which again, like makes the purchase part of the experience as opposed to like the point of you being there. Because that actually makes you feel like I was actually going to pay you anyway, but you've been tapping my pockets for an hour. That sucks, right? That's like your barber only asking if you're going to pay for the haircut before you get in the chair. Like, that's not a barber I want to see. Like, you know why I'm here. So just cut me.
Just
Don't
put,
talk.
yo, just put the fries in the bag, bro.
You know the vibes. So I don't think like, I think selling feels dirty because people aren't clear. I think when you get clear and you know there's a transaction, it's a relationship that there's no issue with the transaction. Issue is when you make the transaction seem like it's not. And I think that's actually one of the things that it creates an integrity gap. Like if that's your sponsor, just say it's your sponsor. But like in a world where like payola is secret, like when we find out, like you look crazy. Or you could just tell us and like deal with the fallout. And I think that with a brand like Zara, who is sort of like, we're available, we're accessible, to kind of stretch that out and then to be like, yeah, we're going to do fashion shows. We're just going to do it differently. And we're going to like bring it to you and make sure you can get access. Because it's actually a differentiator to think about like, there's friction to get in here anyway. So we're going to reduce the friction and increase the time and make it a spectacle. And you can purchase it. That is just, it's just one more added layer that otherwise it's like there's all types of fashion shows all the time. So I do believe that has, a compelling impact for people who might want to do something and who have wares, who have things that people want to see and are beautiful and you can display well and talk about and create an atmosphere that people would want to be in. That just like frees you to talk about it, which is just, and people be like, oh, that's fire. I want that. That's just a very different modus operandi than I think like buy this or else. Like no one wants to be bullied into like a t-shirt.
Right. Yeah, I fully agree with you. It makes me think about all the different ways that people have already been doing live shopping. Like I think about that one shorty from China. I forgot her name. but she's got an assembly line worth of stuff, and she's like, nice, boom, sliding it down. Next thing, right? And like, I think she sold like $14 million worth of items in a day. Or
That's
no, in a
crazy.
week.
That's
She
crazy.
sold $14 million worth of items in a week. And I think part of the reason why she was able to do that is because she was just like, look, this is for sale. If you want it, it's yours. Look, it looks nice. See it? Box, send it. Right? She didn't care how long you wanted to look at it, whether you wanted to look at it again. She didn't care if you wanted to look at that little piece. You saw the shirt, you saw the color, it's in the box, it's gone.
Yeah.
Right? And this idea just puts the power back in the consumer's hands. And like you mentioned, like there is no like real pressure to have to do anything. You're just choosing if you want it or not, which is a very freeing experience for a person. How do the different platforms like influence the creators in a way? Because I think about Amazon, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but at least the way I view Amazon's live shopping experience is that first it's still partnership heavy, and also um it looks like Amazon is designing the space for the creator that they're working with, right? But then I think about like Whatnot, which is all primarily independent sellers, and you know their spaces could be in their house, it could be a place that they rented. They're deciding how they want to design the space and organize the space. How do you, and there's obviously probably more if you could walk us through that, but also how do you think, second question, how do you think that these different types of spaces are actually um influencing the way the seller is interacting with the audience?
Yeah, Amazon isn't a consumer interaction platform. Amazon is a database with your credit card information. So the way that they would work with creators would be distinctly different because there's different goals. And so Amazon thinks about, well, at least Bezos thinks about being everything. And so when you're everything, right, like you can watch The Lord of the Rings and then you can slide over and we'll recommend you the books in a leather bound sleeve you didn't know you needed. And also while you're here, like, do you need toothpaste? And so in that kind of environment where there's so much data around what you already do, I think that creator experience is talking about sort of products that you would use in your home or technology. And so they're thinking about how are these things integrated into your life, because you're on Amazon to get something you need. That's a very different value proposition than Whatnot, which is something you want generally. Whatnot also is about building community, because you can be looking at stores you might have heard of but can't get to, but you can actually get something from them. So the transaction is being facilitated by the peer-to-peer interaction. That's a very distinctive thing, man. Amazon, where there's an affiliate opportunity if you buy through me. On Whatnot, sure, there's the affiliate opportunity, but that's also like, this is an extension of my store. So my storefront is now the internet. And because the storefront's the internet, as long as I can get you in here, I can show you my entire collection and show you what is for sale. And so you can actually have a one-to-one relationship with the owner of this.
Hey MTV, welcome to my crib.
Right.
Everything is for sale, fam. Come pick anything you want up.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's also the lore of like how I built it, the comics I like, the cards I collect. I got this when I was 17. Like there's all these different, I think, story opportunities that create a following. And people are like, oh, I didn't even know about that. And I think we also underestimate, people have really unique interests that you have no idea about. And I think that like there's entire sections of the internet that are just dedicated to very specific environments that I have no context for, and people love it there. And that's a really powerful thing to be well regarded in a category that other people overlook, because they'll go anywhere with you. All right. This is kind of how indie artists work. It's like, I don't need everyone. I need the right one to like me for long enough, and I can go with them.
Yeah, it's like my relationship with Rock Marciano.
Hmm.
It's like he not for everybody, but he for me. What does the future of like live shopping look like to you?
I think there's 3 different elements that I've been seeing. One is sort of private shopping in a different way. So we've talked about this, like personalized stores that only carry the things that they know you want in the way you want them, delivered to the place you want them to be delivered to. And so that's like part of the AI opportunity there, which is curated selections based on what you've signaled you want or the intent you've put into what you've selected before. Member only experiences. So people, like-minded people shopping for the same thing at the same time, meeting each other. So when you go to transact, you're meeting people of like mind. That makes you feel like, oh, I'm rocking with somebody. And then exclusivity. That's typical. I would say also concierge commerce. So that's the idea that there's personal shopping assistance. We're starting to see this with sort of agentic web browsers like Perplexity, which is a search engine, built a web browser that you can type something into, and it will not just go find the thing. It will actually buy it for you and send it to you. So it's essentially not just one-click checkout. It's one-click inquiry. I have your information. It's on the way. And so that's a very different integration layer if you think about live streaming, and then you add in sort of this agent capability. Now I'm free to simply keep engaging, make my intention known, and then something else is doing it for me, which, may or may not be your thing, but it's becoming more and more available. I think also price matching. There's an app called Phia, Phia. They recently raised, I think it was around 8 million. And they're essentially a fashion recommendation app that is trained on data sets of existing inventory. So you can tell them, should I buy this hoodie? And it will scour the internet, not just for that hoodie, but for people that have priced it better, and then send those to you directly. So you get the best price for the thing you want from the place you might not have known was selling it. And so in a world like that, you don't necessarily need help. You don't need help always knowing what you want. You might need help deciding what you should look for. And so that makes a person really powerful, because that person can be a curator.
Because really what you're looking for is a specific type of taste.
Correct.
Yeah.
And taste takes time. So you actually essentially need like a taste coach or someone who can show you a selection of things, and you go, I want to try that. I like that. And then they essentially are leading you into what taste you have. And so I think, by and large, to me, this is powerful, at least on the creator side, because it can give you different stages for specific audiences, right? Like we talked about, a live shopping experience disguised as a fashion show, but also like a community event. And that's for a specific audience that wanted that and a test.
The fashion creators are about to go crazy. Like they're about to go nuts. Because it's like you're part of the reason why you follow a particular fashion creator is because they have a particular type of style or taste.
Right.
Or maybe they have like a similar body build than you. Like I'm thinking about like if you're a bigger guy like me, you know what I mean? You're 5'10", 225. Like you wearing XL, double XL.
Sure.
And there's just a certain amount of things that fit you the way you want them to fit,
Right.
you know? So to find a person who already knows how to dress really well, that has that same body build, and then for you to follow them, and then also you get to shop their closet. You already know that y'all wear similar style, right? So you get to shop their closet. Then on top of that, let's say you take it somewhere else. You're like, yo, look, like community event at come meet me in Soho. We gonna do 5 or 6 of my favorite stores. Big boys come pull up on me, right? Pause by the way.
Yeah, you.
Yeah. Um pause. Um and then on top of that, to just round about it, um anybody who was there that day who didn't like what it is that they bought, they could live shop it as a community,
Mm-hmm.
right? To each other. So like it becomes its own ecosystem
Right.
if you're a person in this particular space. And we're not even talking about the fact that, you can, if you're big enough, you can work with brands that like literally fit your particular aesthetic, who also want you to do a live shopping experience either in their physical store, or they want to send you items that you can sell by styling them in your own like curated space. It's about to be a completely different animal for those folks. And also with all of this, I think about the physical experience, right? Because like now we're looking at what, a mixture of the physical and digital space,
Yeah,
right?
Phygital.
Phygital, that's what they call it.
Physical and digital, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a dope way they put it together. But that changes because not only the example that I said before, which is both physical and digital, but also like the advent of additional technology. I think about like augmented reality, like
Mm-hmm.
a person like me who like lives and breathes with his meta shades, right? Like, but now they got the new version that just dropped, where you actually have like the camera that reads off of your glass, so you can actually have a completely different shopping experience. So it's going to change things a lot, but it looks to me that like shopping is going from a volume thing to an intimate thing. That shopping has just it's going to become intimate. And that intimacy is actually going to be the thing that's going to lead to more sales. Versus this like old school, my thing costs more money than your thing um phase that we were just in.
Yeah, I agree. I also, there are markets for everything. And I think people forget this. I think it's easy. You don't get to be category defining by fitting into a category that exists. You define a category by actually building it. And that takes a lot of time, but it's better to actually have a small market that cares than a big market that doesn't know you. And I find that there's a lot of assumptions made. And I think fashion's a good, environment to talk about this, where if you're a designer, you don't spend your days wondering if you're going to be Giorgio Armani. You generally spend your days trying to hone your craft, and perhaps that's part of your inspiration. I think that's actually analogous to any other sector or thing people are focused on. Because once you find that market of people, and even that market of people that's adjacent to someone, and you make something for them, you don't have to rely on being associated because you're vindicated, because you can sell directly to them. And if you make something people want and continue to listen to them and what they say, they will return that reciprocity functionally. And so that to me is one of the things I wanted to get across in this conversation is you create categories and then you invite people. You don't necessarily have to spend time redefining an existing category. You can, but just know that game is very different. And it's just as hard as creating a category, I would argue, and takes just as much time, if not longer, because you have to spend all your time saying what you're not. And that actually is just as hard as just doubling down on who you are and what you do. And it might take you a while to figure that out, but it's worth the effort, because once you do, you can actually just compound that and invite people in. And I think that is what makes it an exciting thing. I found this quote by James Dyson. James Dyson is the guy who invented the Dyson vacuum cleaner. He's one of the only people that I think he owns 100% of his business. And I think he had like 500 different versions of the vacuum cleaner before he even hit. And he says that only by trying to sell the thing you have made yourself can you really come to understand what you have done, to bond with your invention, and to improve it. And I think that that's why everyone should learn how to sell. Because you actually don't know if you can until you make something you believe is worth selling. And most people spend time wondering if they're worth it, as opposed to getting feedback on the thing they did so they could go make something that people want, as opposed to trying to convince people they should want something.
That's a profound fucking quote. I think we can leave with that.
All right, great. Well, I'm Jonathan.
I'm Carl.
Lingo out here. Don't follow me. Don't follow Carl. Follow the money.